For over 50 years, one man carried a secret few could imagine. He was Jackie Kennedy's bodyguard, always nearby during moments of intense pressure, tragedy, and private grief. The world saw elegance, composure, and grace, but what cameras never captured was the life. She lived when no one was watching. Behind the polished public image was a woman, quietly weighed down by losses too profound for headlines. Smiles hid exhaustion. Poise concealed sorrow. Silence became her shield, protecting not only herself but her children from the harsh glare of public scrutiny. For decades, this bodyguard refused to speak. Not to historians, not to the press, not even to friends. He carried the truth in silence, knowing the world wasn't ready for the human story behind the icon. But time changes things, and eventually silence becomes heavier than the truth itself. Now, after 50 years, he has finally broken that silence. What he reveals isn't scandal or rumor, it's heartbreak. A tragic secret that shows why Jackie Kennedy withdrew, why she sometimes seemed distant, and why her life behind the cameras was far more complicated than anyone imagined. Because behind the world's icon was a woman enduring pain, surviving through strength, and protecting what little peace she could claim. And now the world is finally hearing her story the way it was meant to be told. For decades, the world only knew Jackie Kennedy as a symbol of elegance, grace, and resilience. Cameras captured her public appearances, her poised demeanor, and her quiet composure. But what they never showed was the woman behind the image. The bodyguard who protected her during her most private and painful moments has finally revealed what life was really like behind closed doors. And the truth is far more human than anyone ever imagined. When he began working with Jackie, she was already carrying the weight of unimaginable loss. Publicly, she maintained an almost flawless composure, giving the impression of strength and control. Privately, however, she navigated grief in silence, managing emotions that could not be shared without risk of exposure or misunderstanding. Every gesture, every pause, and every expression was deliberate, a careful balancing act between vulnerability and self-preservation. He recalls that Jackie rarely spoke directly about her pain. Instead, it surfaced in subtle, often almost invisible ways, a quiet retreat from conversation, a distant look, or a long pause before responding. These were moments the world never noticed, yet they revealed the depth of what she carried. To the public, her calm seemed natural. To him, it was the result of constant vigilance, discipline, and survival instinct. Her children were at the heart of every decision she made. Jackie went to extraordinary lengths to shield them from the scrutiny and chaos surrounding their family. She created an environment that was as normal as possible, offering them stability while quietly carrying her own burdens. Even in her private moments, she carefully managed her emotional expression, ensuring that her children never saw the full weight of her grief. The bodyguard also observed how anniversaries, locations, or even casual reminders of her past could trigger subtle shifts in her demeanor. Her body language would change, her voice would soften, or she would abruptly leave the room. These reactions were not performances. They were genuine manifestations of pain that had never fully healed. Over time, he realized that Jackie's silence was not emptiness or coldness. It was protection of herself, her family, and the memory of her life before tragedy. She feared being reduced to an icon, a caricature of elegance, rather than being seen as a woman who had endured profound loss and survived with dignity. Every decision she made, every boundary she set, and every word she spoke was guided by that understanding. For decades, he remained silent as well, carrying her secret with the same loyalty and dedication he had shown while guarding her life. Speaking out earlier would have risked turning her pain into spectacle, something neither he nor Jackie would have allowed. It took more than 50 years before he felt the world might finally listen with empathy rather than curiosity. Now, as he recounts his experiences, the story of Jackie Kennedy shifts. The icon is no longer just an untouchable figure frozen in history. She becomes a woman whose strength was defined not by the absence of sorrow, but by the ability to navigate it quietly, protect those she loved, and maintain dignity in a world that demanded perfection. Through his testimony, the public sees a fuller, more human picture. Jackie Kennedy endured tragedy with remarkable composure, surviving not by ignoring her grief, but by managing it with intelligence, resilience, and profound care for those around her. Her story is a testament to the power of quiet endurance, revealing the hidden strength behind the icon as the years went on. The bodyguard's role shifted from simply protecting Jackie Kennedy physically to safeguarding her emotional world. He observed how deeply she had learned to manage the weight of constant public scrutiny, understanding that her every action, even in private, could be interpreted or misunderstood. It was a delicate balance, maintaining dignity and privacy while living under the relentless gaze of history and the media. He recalled how Jackie often sought solitude, not from loneliness but from necessity. Silence was a form of preservation. In those quiet moments, she could process memories, assess her emotions, and regain strength for the demands that lay ahead. She had mastered the art of controlling what others saw, choosing when to reveal herself and when to retreat. For someone constantly in the public eye, this was not avoidance, it was survival. The bodyguard also shared how anniversaries and reminders of the past could deeply affect her. Certain dates, familiar locations, or even a seemingly casual remark could trigger visible signs of distress. These were never dramatic outbursts but subtle human reactions, a distant gaze, a slightly trembling voice, or a quiet withdrawal. He emphasized that these were signs of her humanity, not weakness. Even with the world watching, Jackie remained highly attentive to the people around her. She cared deeply for her children, her staff, and those closest to her, often showing quiet acts of kindness that went unnoticed by anyone outside her inner circle. Despite carrying immense grief, she never allowed her own sorrow to overshadow the needs of others. The bodyguard described this as a remarkable balance, a testament to her resilience and empathy. He also reflected on how Jackie feared being remembered only for tragedy. She worried that history would reduce her to a symbol, a widow, a first lady, an icon of loss rather than a woman who lived, loved, and endured. This fear shaped her behavior. She maintained control over her private world, limited unnecessary exposure, and chose when and how to share personal moments. The public persona, while polished and composed, was carefully constructed to protect the reality of her life. According to the bodyguard, time did not erase her grief. Instead, it taught her how to live with it. Jackie adapted, creating routines and boundaries that allowed her to function and maintain her family stability while quietly processing what she could not share. Her silence was strategic, a deliberate act of protection for herself and her loved ones. He also acknowledged that remaining silent for decades was a choice made out of loyalty. Speaking out too soon would have exposed private pain to speculation and misunderstanding. Only now, after 50 years, did he feel the world might listen with empathy, not curiosity or judgment. His decision to speak was not meant to sensationalize Jackie's life, but to humanize it, to show the strength it took to survive amid loss and constant scrutiny. Ultimately, the story he shares reframes Jackie Kennedy not just as an icon, but as a woman who endured deeply human struggles. Her elegance, composure, and strength were not the absence of emotion, but a carefully cultivated resilience. She survived by managing grief, protecting her family, and maintaining dignity in a world that expected perfection. Through his testimony, the public can finally see Jackie Kennedy as more than a symbol. She was a woman of depth, empathy, and extraordinary endurance. Her silent strength, once hidden, now offers insight into the human side of a life that has long been mythologized. One of the most striking aspects the bodyguard observed was Jackie Kennedy's ability to maintain composure even in moments that would have overwhelmed most people. He often saw her navigate complex social situations with grace, keeping her emotions carefully measured while internally managing immense grief. Her silence, which the public often misinterpreted as distance or coldness, was in fact a calculated form of emotional survival. He shared that her private life was defined by routines that helped her preserve a sense of stability. Every detail mattered: when she walked, how she spoke, even the arrangements of her home. These small acts were ways to maintain control in a world that had repeatedly shown her how fragile life could be. In many ways, her discipline was a shield, protecting her from exposure, misunderstanding, and the inevitable scrutiny that followed her every move. The bodyguard also noted that Jackie's grief never fully disappeared. It became woven into her daily life. Certain dates, locations, or even seemingly mundane reminders could trigger quiet, almost imperceptible signs of emotional strain. She did not allow these moments to disrupt her responsibilities or her public image, but they were their persistent reminders of the losses she carried. These glimpses revealed the human side of someone the world had long seen only as an untouchable icon. Another revelation was her unwavering care for those around her, even while burdened with private sorrow. She remained attentive to her children, staff, and close friends, ensuring that their emotional needs were met. The bodyguard described this as a hallmark of her character. She endured her own pain while remaining a source of strength and support for others. Her empathy, he emphasized, was heightened by her own experiences with loss. He explained that Jackie's fear of misrepresentation influenced her every action. She was cautious not only about how the world perceived her, but also about how history might remember her. She feared being reduced to a widow or a symbol of tragedy, rather than being seen as a woman who lived, felt, and persevered. This fear shaped the careful control she exercised over her public and private life. From her words to her demeanor to the spaces she allowed others to enter, the bodyguard also reflected on the immense patience and resilience Jackie developed over the years. Time did not erase grief. Instead, it required her to adapt, creating ways to carry sorrow without letting it consume her. She learned to function, to love, and to protect her family while living with unspoken pain. Her quiet endurance was, in many ways, a survival strategy, a method of navigating life while carrying burdens the world could never fully understand. By finally sharing these memories, the bodyguard hopes to give the world a more complete understanding of Jackie Kennedy. She was not aloof or detached. She was a woman who had endured unimaginable personal tragedy and learned how to survive it with dignity. Her strength was not performative. It was lived in silence, discipline, and resilience. Ultimately, this account reframes Jackie Kennedy as more than an icon or a historical figure. She was a mother, a protector, and a woman whose life demonstrates the quiet power of endurance. Through these revelations, the public can see her humanity, the emotional depth, the pain, and the courage that defined her life behind the carefully curated image seen on television and in photographs. In reflecting on decades of experience, the bodyguard made it clear that Jackie Kennedy's strength was both visible and hidden. The public admired her elegance and composure, but the real measure of her resilience was found in the moments that went unseen. Behind the cameras, she lived with sorrow that never fully dissipated. Yet she navigated each day with intentionality, ensuring that her grief did not dominate her life or her family. He described how Jackie maintained careful boundaries, not out of pride, but out of necessity. She understood that allowing anyone to see her fully vulnerable could compromise her sense of self and her children's security. Even those closest to her had limited access to the most private layers of her emotions. She managed relationships, routines, and spaces with deliberate precision, creating a controlled environment that allowed her to endure the pressures of life under constant observation. The bodyguard emphasized that Jackie's silence was not a lack of feeling. On the contrary, it was an active choice, a form of protection for herself and those she loved. Her composure in public was a reflection of decades of discipline, an ability to function even when emotionally burdened. She learned to endure without complaint, to safeguard her family without revealing the full cost of her sacrifices, and to maintain dignity when others might have faltered. He also highlighted her extraordinary empathy. Despite carrying immense personal grief, Jackie remained attentive to the emotional needs of others. She offered support quietly, without drawing attention, demonstrating that strength and compassion often coexist in the most private moments. Her life was a balance between enduring personal sorrow and providing stability for those around her. Breaking his silence now, the bodyguard hopes to provide a more complete picture of Jackie Kennedy. She was not distant or cold, as many assumed. She was a woman who understood the weight of loss and the responsibility of surviving with grace. Her life behind closed doors was a testament to patience, resilience, and quiet courage. By sharing what he observed, he allows the world to see the woman beneath the icon, the human being who carried tragedy with dignity, while protecting her loved ones and herself. Ultimately, Jackie Kennedy's story is one of survival. She endured grief that few could comprehend and navigated life with care, thoughtfulness, and restraint. Her silence was not emptiness, but a deliberate act of strength. She lived with intention, balancing sorrow with the demands of the world around her, and in doing so, left a legacy of resilience that continues to inspire. The Bodyguard's revelations show that the image of Jackie Kennedy in photographs and on television tells only part of the story. The real story is one of human endurance, emotional complexity, and courage in the face of relentless personal and public challenges. For the first time, the world can understand the woman behind the legend, a woman whose life was defined not only by tragedy, but by the remarkable ways she survived it, silently and steadfastly, until the end.